My talk today, why most data presentations flop, the secret equation for success. Now raise of hand for all of you in the room, who hates giving presentations? Wow. I'd say a good 70% of the audience hates giving presentations. And today I want to hopefully change your mind about presentations in general. Presentation should be something, hopefully, by the end of this talk that you look forward to. And I'm Chris, a communication coach for tech professionals. When I worked in the data industry, one of the major things I realized was that there's an abundance of resources when it comes to technical training, but such a lack of resources when it comes to presentation and communication. So I'm hoping to close that gap, hopefully, for you all today. A lot of slides that we see look a lot like this. This is an example of a bad standard business template slide. Now, for all of you who raised your hand, when I asked if you hated giving presentations, it probably is because a lot of slides look like this. So can one of you tell me, what is it about this slide that you hate or strongly dislike? Too many words? Anything else?
There's
No takeaway? Anything else?
kind of boring.
Kind of boring. I like it. Well, bad slides, they feel like this. This is a famous image from psychology, where there's a bunch of black and white on the page. You can't really get the clear takeaway. It's not immediately visually apparent to you, until maybe I do this. Then you might see that there's actually a Dalmatian dog right there if you piece together all the dots. A good slide feels like this, where you can immediately see that takeaway. But a great slide looks like that, where you take away all the unnecessary noise, filler, and fluff, and now the takeaway is immediately and visually apparent. So going back to this bad business template slide, the root problem here, why slides are made this way to begin with, is because there's a fundamental misunderstanding about the purpose of a presentation. The purpose of a presentation is not to give information. And I'll repeat that. The purpose of a presentation is not to give information. All we've been taught in school and the workplace is wrong. Because if you think about it, if you take that to the end of its logical course, if the purpose of a presentation is to give information, then I could just stuff these slides to the brim with text and just email the slide deck to all of you. You would have all the information, but it would be boring, and it wouldn't be engaging for you to read through. Why are you all here today as a captive audience listening to me talk for 30 minutes when I could have just emailed you all my talking points and had you read through the slide deck? Because the purpose of a presentation is not to give information. It's to inspire action. You all came here today because you're hoping that when you go back to your workplaces on Monday, you've learned something and been inspired to do something to give killer, effective, persuasive presentations when you return. So the purpose of a presentation is not to give information. The purpose of a presentation is to inspire action. And here's the equation for success that I gave in the title of this talk. Information plus something equals inspiration. So can anyone guess what that blank just might be? I like it. Any other thoughts or guesses? What was that? Okay. Any other thoughts? Passion, I like it. Well, I'm not going to say if any of those are right or wrong just yet, but by the end of this talk, I'll tell you what that blank is. So let's go back to this bad standard business template slide. What's bad about it? A lot of you called that out earlier. There's a vague title, number of products sold in 2020, too much text, ambiguous table, no clear takeaway. So how do we fix it so that it feels like this, a great slide, where there's not just a bunch of black and white on the page, but you can immediately see what's important? So, do any of you have any thoughts on how to take these slides we all hate so much and make them great? Any thoughts from the audience?
The table and a chart.
Table and a chart. Anything else?
Animation.
Animation, okay. Anything else?
Focus on one point.
Focus on one point. So let's do that. Let's change this slide into a great slide. And by the end of this presentation, what you're going to see is to take these slides we hate so much, I'm going to change it into an effective slide, And not just that, by the end of this presentation, you'll see it unfold into a data story. So let's begin. We have this table, a bunch of black and white on the page, but now I've used that image you saw before where I have a red circle where it's most important. So we took away all the text that we found and criticized before. We just have that because I can talk through all those points myself. And I've highlighted in red the most important thing you need to pay attention to, which is this decline in October to December from 100 to 50. But we mentioned before, another way we could improve this is a chart, because if you look at this table, it doesn't jump out at you that there's a decline there. So why don't we do that? Let's put this into a chart. And now you can feel something at that moment from October to December. The blue line for brownies decreases from 100 to 50, and you can feel that change, the urgency behind it, because it crisscrosses the other lines. It's the only line that goes down at that point. But we can do even better. We can have an actually clear title, so not just a vague descriptive title like number of products sold in 2020. We can have a title that displays what our message is supposed to be. Ice cream and cakes increase, but sharp decline in brownies since October. Now the audience understands, all of you understand, what you have to look at. But going a little further, because the purpose of a presentation is not just to give information, but to inspire action, you want your audience to feel something when they look at this. So let's enhance each part of our story. There are two parts. Ice cream and cakes increase, but sharp decline in brownies since October. So to enhance our first part of our story, why did ice cream and cakes increase? Let's show the actual value so we can show that increase. But as you see here, it gets a little noisy. We have the y-axis and the grid lines, but also the data labels. That's redundant. We don't need both at the same time. So why don't we clean that up a little bit and just show the data labels? You have all the information, and it's a lot more clean. But now the points seem a bit untethered. Where are the actual data points? Let's perhaps add some markers to indicate what those points are. But again, now it looks a bit messy. So let's think about this for a minute. How do we make our story and message clear with the minimum number of visual elements necessary? Perhaps all we need are the endpoints, because after all, we just, to show an increase, need the first point and the last point. We don't need everything in between. And in fact, we don't need all these markers in between to show that increase. We let the trend line speak for itself. And here is another guiding principle for slide design: comprehensiveness versus conciseness. You don't want to show everything. You want to show only the most important things the audience needs to see, which are just these endpoints in the trend line. So let's repeat that for the second part of our story. You don't just want to inform, you want to inspire, and you want the audience to feel something when they see this. So let's enhance the sharp decline in brownies since October by showing again the first point, and then the last 3 points to show the decline. But we can do even better than that. Let's enhance that blue line with a little bit of extra width, so you know exactly where to look. But if you notice, there's something else we can do. There's a sharp change between this slide and this one. I removed the legend. If you all look at how you read this slide, your eyes are pinballing between the legend and the graph. Blue is brownies, that's that line. Orange is ice cream, that's that line. It's an uncomfortable user experience. So let's change that by actually putting the category labels next to the lines themselves. Now you can immediately read what they represent. Now, there's something else on this slide I haven't yet touched, but it's been bothering me intensely since I put this on the page. Can any of you guess what visual element I haven't yet touched or edited that can be improved upon? Yeah?
The line under the title?
That's a good point. That can be improved. Anything else? The title itself? Okay. Anything else? The x-axis. All good points. Actually, the thing that I hated most about this image when I put it on the screen is actually the colors. There's too much color on this page. And you might justifiably say, wait, there can't be too much color on this page. There are only 3 colors, blue, orange, and gray. But again, the guiding principle for slide design is you use the minimum number of visual elements necessary to convey your story. I don't need a different color for every category, do I? I already have category labels indicating what the lines represent, so I don't need a different color to do this exact same thing. That's redundant. So let's make them all the same color. Now you'll justifiably say, well, this looks worse because it looks boring. There's no visual interest here anymore, and this is not the final version. But what I want to emphasize to you, especially in data visualization, is the importance of starting with this, starting with a muted default gray, hopefully, background. Because if you recall, this image and why it was so boring is because it had a lot of black and white on the page. But when I added that red circle stood out because it's one bold, bright color on a default muted background. So let's replicate that effect here. I start with gray as my default muted background, and then I add a touch of one bold, bright color, and that's where your eye immediately goes. There's the visual interest. But I can do even better than that. I can add red to the title. Now you connect the dots between the sharp decline and how it visually appears in the graph. But as you probably noticed from this talk, there's still more. And like a good magician never reveals his trick until the end, this is my final trick. I've added a spotlight effect. So now your eye immediately goes straight there to the very top where things start to go wrong for our brownies. They go from 100 sold in October to 50 sold in December. So we showed again that we started with this bad business template slide, and we went to something that's a lot more effective. But as you probably noticed from this talk, we're still not done. So let's say we gave this slide presentation to the CEO of our baking company. We have 3 products, ice cream, cakes, and brownies. The CEO is interested in the performance of the company. If you see this slide, what question do you think a good CEO would ask after seeing it? I heard a lot of things, and I think what I heard was, why? That is such an important question to ask, and in fact, that's the one that probably would be asked. Why is this happening in the first place? We can't do anything better for our company unless we understand why. So let's say as good analysts, we did our due diligence, and we did a little more digging into what's going on. So we found that the percent of satisfied customers dropped in the same time frame. So it turns out this company conducts customer satisfaction surveys every month, and we found that the percent dropped precipitously. Again, using all the visualization techniques we've covered so far, you feel that sudden, urgent drop right there. And I've spotlighted that point. Doing a little more research, we find that, in fact, brownie sugar content dropped during that same time. So our story is unfolding. We're understanding what's going on. And this is good for the company. Brownies cost less, but why is that? And it turns out that it's because there's less sugar in the brownies. So brownie sugar costs less because there's less sugar in them. They went from about 50 grams per brownie to 8 or 9 grams. And as a result, that is perhaps why the customers are not liking it and not buying it. So now we see this data story unfolding in front of our eyes. So let's go back to this original slide where we showed all 3, and we realize there's more noise here than necessary. We don't need all 3 lines because our story now focuses on just brownies. So let's just take that out and just focus on that one line. And let's flag that moment. The reason why, again, many asked, why am I spotlighting that point? And the reason is because that is the point when we introduce a new reduced sugar recipe. That's the point when things all started to go wrong. So I'm highlighting this for the CEO to understand this is what we need to focus on. And now, on this slide, I put all those pieces together in one place for you to see not just one slide, but this narrative unfold in front of your eyes. We have reduced sugar, hurt satisfaction, and hurt sales. Now, we're still not done. A good CEO, a great CEO, will ask something else at this point. We just addressed what is happening. We said, why is it happening? What other question would a great CEO ask after seeing this slide? Anyone?
Why did we reduce the sugar?
Why did we reduce the sugar is a great one. Any other thoughts? What are we? Great. Yes. All of those things are important to address. The one that I'm going to specifically call out is what do we do now? What do we do next? Because remember, my mantra from the beginning, a presentation is not about giving information, it's about inspiring action. What is the point of giving all this information in the first place if we're not going to do anything about it? So let's make it immediately apparent to the CEO why we should do something about this. This slide is the so what. So we talked before about what's going on. This is why is it important. So what? You can see that because we have that reduced sugar recipe, that we now have a decreasing trend in our profit margins, and now we have our first month of loss in December, negative 12%. This is bad. If we continue on this path, we will continue to lose money. So now the CEO understands why this is so important to do right now to change something, and now we have the now what slide. What do we do now? We extracted data from our December surveys. Again, December is the point when we had our first month of loss, and customers, 52% say it's no longer good. And in fact, a representative quote says, brownies used to taste good a few months ago. So we understand that the data is not lying. We understand exactly what the customers want. They want, here's the call to action, the original recipe. So you can see now, I'm going to just show the transformation we've done over the course of this presentation. We started with this, again, bad standard business template slide you all know and hate. And we went into a data story that unfolds. What is going on? What is happening? Then we go to why is this important? And finally, we go to what do we do next? So to wrap up, well, I just showed that. But I was going to ask you what that was originally blank in the beginning of our presentation. And yes, it is emotion. And a lot of you in the audience might be scratching your heads and saying, well, emotion, we can't integrate that into our data and technical work, can we? You'd be absolutely right. I want to clarify what I mean by this. We should absolutely be objective, scientific, and rational when it comes time to using processes to drive our insights. Because at that point, when we're doing the processes, we're dealing with one-dimensional numbers, codes, computers, information in and information out. All they need is information in the process stage. But when you get to presentation of those insights that you derived, you're not dealing with one-dimensional numbers, codes, and computers anymore. You're dealing with three-dimensional human beings who need information, but also emotion and inspiration. We all know this. We are emotional, messy, illogical creatures most of the time. And in order for your incredibly important information to land and have impact, you need to recognize that about us as your audience. We need an exciting and engaging experience of this information in order to have that be inspirational. So I want to leave you with a final inspiring thought. My call to action from this presentation is that you have the power to inspire others with your presentations. So at the beginning of this talk, I asked, how many of you hate giving presentations? And most of the room raised their hand. Hopefully by this point, I've changed the way you think about presentation. A presentation is not about giving information, it's about inspiring action. If we start thinking about presentations as not just vehicles to dump loads of information into our audience's minds, we start thinking about presentation as a way to inspire others, to give a good experience, to change the way people think, to change the way businesses conduct their business, then suddenly we realize the power within our own voice to make an impact. So you all have the power to inspire others with your presentation. So when you go back to work on Monday, I want you to think about that. Every single one of you has the power to inspire others with your presentations. Not just to inform, but to inspire, because information plus emotion equals inspiration. So thank you all. And this is my QR code. You can all scan this with your smartphone. If you want links to my free resources, my LinkedIn, my blog, please do stay connected. Say hi on LinkedIn. And it was a pleasure getting to talk to you today. Thank you.